Hello, I'm Travis Klein, Assistant Director of Northwest Missouri State University Career Services. And today we're going to be talking about making strong resumes and cover letters and how you can not only make a good resume, but make one that's going to potentially get you the job. So, as we jump into the presentation here, the first thing is the Career Services Office. We want to help you through this process. It's not something you have to do on your own. We understand resumes and cover letters can be confusing. It can get difficult to deal with. So please let us help you along the way. I'm happy to do that in person. You can come meet with us in the office in Admin 130. We're also happy to work with you if you are away from campus or perhaps after you graduate through email at career@nwmissouri.edu. And you can also find a lot of these same resources and even additional information on our website at nwmissouri.edu/career. So one of the first places we like to start is talking about what a resume is and why it's important. So oftentimes when you apply for a job, you're going to fill out an online application that gives the employer your basic information, your name, your date of birth, where you live, your education, things like that. But the resume is really your first chance to make a first impression on the employer. It's a chance to tell them what you've done in the past that's prepared you for their job and why you're the best candidate for their position. So that's why you want to have a really strong resume. You want it to be as powerful as possible as you put it in front of employers because there's a lot of competitions for these jobs. A lot of times they're looked at very quickly. The average job in America has about 200 applications for one open position. So a lot of competition for these jobs. So you want to make sure that you make a resume that's very easy to read, can be skimmed through very quickly, and is going to grab their attention as quickly as possible. 15 seconds is typically what they say the average employer looks at a resume for the first time. So very quickly. So again, your formatting is very important. The fonts that you use are very important. The way that you lay it out, all very important. And we'll talk through all of those things for you here in this presentation. So the one thing I want everyone to take out of this presentation today, if nothing else, is that it's very important that you make a unique resume for every job that you apply for. There is no one size fits all general resume that you can use for every job. The competition is so high and jobs are so difficult to find, internships sometimes even more, that you do need to make a unique resume for every application. Really need it to be tailor made, specifically talking about what they're looking for. That way you can tell them what you've done to prepare you for the job, your education, your experiences, all that sort of stuff. That is the most important thing that you can do as you go through a job search internship process is to make a unique resume for every job and every internship. So things that you want to include on the resume, you want to make sure they know who you are and how to contact you. Again, you are doing an online application that this will be attached to, but this is also a chance where you can tell them your email address, your phone number, things like that. So you want to make sure all that contact information right up there at the top of the page. You also want to make sure that you have a quick summary section to start off. So this is basically your top points, the things you really want the employer to know. The higher it is on the resume, the more important it is. So that summary right after your contact information, hitting them with some information about your most important stuff that you want them to know about. You want to tell them about your education, where you got your degree, classes that you've taken, the GPA that you've gotten, those sorts of things. Definitely want to include that information on it. The experiences that you've had, these could be paid, unpaid experiences, academic projects, things like that. Anything that's related that's prepared you for this job, you want to make sure you're listing under experience. And then you also want to list activities. So outside of classroom stuff, volunteer work that you've done, things that maybe are outside of the scope of regular experience, you want to make sure that you include those as well as possible. So we'll walk through each of these different sections, kind of give you an example of them, give you some best practices, kind of things that you can do to make each section be as strong as possible. So starting off with your header and contact information. So the name needs to be the biggest thing on the screen. So the biggest font size, easiest to read. There's a chance for you to have a little bit of your personality come through in the way that you design it, but you want it to be big and bold and easy to see. Stay away from script fonts and things that can be difficult to read. You want to make sure that from a distance, even if it's laying on a table and an employer walks in, they can clearly read your name and see what it is. So that's really important. You want to make sure you include your city, state, and zip code. You do not need to have your street address. That's going to be on the application that you fill out. It's also kind of a safety issue, but city, state, zip code, very important to put on there. Phone number, only one needs to be listed. You don't need to have multiple numbers. If you are listing a cell phone number, it's very important that you have your voicemail set up, that you're actually checking it, that you have a professional greeting. That's really important. Same thing with your email address. Make sure that it's a professional email address, that it's giving the right impression to an employer when you do it. Some students will like to do their own website if maybe they're in the creative fields. Maybe they're a web designer, they want to show off their own website, they can do that. So you can have a portfolio site if you're in a more creative field as well. You can have a link to your LinkedIn profile. other things like that. Whatever you think the employer needs to learn about you, the header section, contact info, best place to put that. Again, don't need to include that street address. That's unnecessary to put on a resume. You also, if you're doing a resume and cover letter, which we certainly recommend, you want to make sure that this part matches on both of the documents so they can see that they're a matched pair, that they go together. So a quick example, Bobby Bearcat, or lovely mascot here at Northwest, his name is actually Robert Bearcat, so you get to put that on there, or if he prefers, you do Bobby either way. We got your email address, phone number, LinkedIn profile on the bottom one there, and then city, state, zip code on both. Summary of qualifications, again, is the next thing that you want. So you want it to be very high up on the document, show the employer that it's a high value for you. We typically recommend 3 to 4 bullet points of your most relevant qualifications, the things you think have prepared you the most for the job. When you're looking at a job description, sometimes they'll have preferred qualifications or an ideal candidate will possess. This is the place to talk about those if possible. Again, you want to have the higher up it is, the more important it is. So your first bullet is your most important thing, second is the second most important, and so on and so on. So make sure that you do that. If possible, try and use numbers as much as possible to give some weight to your statements. So if it's numbers of people or dollar amounts or things like that, numbers are always a good thing to put in there. And again, these need to change for every position. So take a look at that job description, what they're asking for, think about what you've done. What can you put in those spots that really represents you the best way possible to that employer? So a quick example here of a summary of qualifications. So this person is a motivated professional with more than 3 years of experience in retail management. They've managed 5 employees in the accounting department to maintain a highly efficient environment. They specialize in employer recruitment and retention. That's probably aligned directly from the job description. And they designed and implemented a 2-year strategic marketing plan for the sales department. So again, probably something that's being asked for there. So very tailored to the position, telling them exactly what you've done that's prepared you for the job that you're applying for. Education is also something typically students who are in college or have just graduated college, we usually want this to be towards the top, usually for about the first 5 years after you've graduated. Then typically your experience will outweigh the education and you'll flop those. But for most folks who are probably watching this presentation, education would come right after the summary of qualifications. So any place that you got a degree, whether it be an associate degree, a bachelor degree, a master's degree, a PhD, whatever it is, you want to list those places. If you went to a school and you transferred out before you were awarded a degree, you do not have to list them. You can if you want to. Some students want to show variety, show that they went to MU for a couple semesters before they came to Northwest, for example. That's fine if you want to do that, but you do not have to list them. But if, say, you went to North Central Missouri College, you got an Associate of Arts degree, you do need to list that. High school typically does not need to be listed on here after your first year of college. It's assumed that you got a high school diploma. The exception to this would be if you're an education major and maybe you're applying back at your home school district that you graduated from. Maybe you want to tell them that you graduated from Maryville High School 3 years ago when you're applying for student teaching there or something. So that's fine in that case. But for most students, we'd say high school can drop off after that first year of college, unless it's really, really relevant. GPA is definitely something we encourage students to list. That can be your overall GPA or major specific GPA, whichever one is more favorable for you. You can see the most up-to-date version of your GPA in your degree audit system online. What we say is if it's above a 3.0 on a 4-point scale, good to list it. If it's below a 3.0, probably best not to. We do have international students who come from colleges and universities where it's on a 10-point scale or a higher scale than 4.0. If that's the case, we would encourage you to go ahead, do the math for the employer, convert it to a 4-point scale. That way it's easy for them to understand the A, B, C, D, kind of 4-point scale that we typically work with in the US. So on a 4-point scale is what we'd recommend do it. We do recommend that you put this on the right-hand side. Underneath the graduation date, we'll see that on the example. That way it stands out, doesn't get lost in the text. Sometimes we do have students, especially our science students, who will have relevant coursework that can help them get a position to where they may not have other experience in that. Like if they're trying to get a job in a laboratory, they've probably not worked in a lab, but they've taken lab safety, maybe they've been a lab assistant, things like that. So listing relevant coursework in just a comma-separated list, never a bad idea to kind of show that you have some additional experience outside of your experience section that's coming up next. And then anything like projects, things like that, study abroad, those we would recommend typically putting on their own in the experience section so they can have a little more space. But some students will add additional lines here if they're paying their way through college, things like that, just to kind of add some additional weight to the education. So that's completely up to you, and we're happy to help you figure out what works best in your situation for that. So education example here. So if you are a single major, you want to say Bachelor of Science. You notice it is singular and it is not a possessive. It's not a bachelor's degree. It's Bachelor of Science, Biomedical Sciences pre-vet, and then just the graduation date. They don't need to know a range of time that you were in school, just when you plan to graduate. If it's further than a year out, you can say expected, but you do not have to do that. So, December 2024 would be fine here. You do want to tell them where you go to school. So spell out Northwest Missouri State University. NWMSU is one of those things we urge students not to do. There's a lot of alumni out there that really do not like just the initials. So spelling out Northwest Missouri State University, always a good idea under education. And then you want to tell them that we're located in Maryville, Missouri. You don't need the zip code here, but you do want to say Maryville, Missouri. If you're applying for jobs kind of outside the 2 hour bubble of Maryville, they may not be familiar with Northwest. And like there's a Northwestern University in Chicago that's a very different institution. So telling them Northwest Missouri State University, Maryville, Missouri, definitely a good idea. And then that GPA, whether it's overall or major, you can see both of them listed here. Just need one of them, whichever one you think is more favorable for you. Double majors, you just say Bachelor of Science, double major, marketing, business management. And then the same thing when you're going to graduate, where you went to school, overall GPA. Some students will have multiple degrees. So if you have a master's and a bachelor's or a master and a bachelor, we recommend doing, it's always the newest one on top. So reverse chronological order. So Master of Science in Education Teaching Middle School, May 2023, Northwest Missouri State University, and I have a Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education at Missouri Southern in Joplin when they graduated 2019. So listing both of them, newest one on top, oldest one on the bottom. So definitely how you want to list that. Again, we can help you with additional stuff with this. If you want to do related coursework, you want to talk about, funding your own education, we can kind of help you add those lines to this section as well if you'd like to do that. Experience is probably the most important part of the entire resume. That's where you're really telling the employer what you've done. So both paid and unpaid experiences need to be listed here. Anything that's giving you experience to make you prepared for their job or internship, you need to tell them about under experience. So academic projects, internships, volunteer examples. We have some majors like human services on campus where volunteer experiences can be more valuable than paid experiences for some jobs they're trying for. So anything that you think has helped you, you should list under experience. You want to make sure you do bullets for this. So 3 to 5 bullets for every experience, where again, you're making a very specific bullet that's telling them exactly what you've done. You need to be doing that, listing experiences, examples, things like that, using numbers, just like in the summary. That's definitely something you want to do. We have a whole slide on bullet building that we'll look at to kind of help you think about that. Again, these are listed in reverse chronological order. So the newest experience on top and then the oldest one on the bottom. You want to make sure you're telling them the title of the job, who the employer was, the location of that. So if you worked at Walmart, is that Walmart in Maryville, Walmart in Blue Springs? Very different experience. So you want to make sure you tell them that. And then this is where they get the range. So it's from this date, month and year to this date, month and year. So this is where they get the range of I worked there for a year, for 10 years, for 15 years, very different experiences. So they need the range of it there. So again, 3 to 4 bullets for each one, and then you want to make sure that you're formatting it consistently throughout so that's very easy to read. So we have an example here of bullet building. So when you're making a bullet, you want to make it as strong as possible. So we always say, think about what you did, first of all, how you did it, why did you do it, and then is there something you can quantify for it? So this student sold advertising spots for campus media. Maybe they worked for the Northwest Missourian or something like that. They did that by contacting 40 local businesses each week, telling them that they needed to buy advertising spots or asking them to buy advertising spots. They did it it was their job, but to increase advertising sales income. And the quantifiable part is that they had a 25% sales increase. So the bullet we can make out of this is conducted advertisement sales on a weekly basis throughout Maryville and the surrounding areas for newspaper, yearbook, magazine, radio, and television spots, increasing advertising sales by 25% from the previous year. So that tells them a whole lot of information. It has a quantifiable number in it, shows kind of what you're doing. So a very strong bullet with just a few extra things. So another one that they did, maybe this is an education student. They were a reading tutor. So they spent 30 minutes with a student 3 times a week to provide reading instruction. They did it to help improve the student's reading proficiency, and they did it for 30 minutes. So the amount of time is what they're quantifying here. So they tutored 6 students, spending 30 minutes with each student 3 times a week, improving reading proficiency by an average of 2 steps over the school year. So again, very concise bullet, not a huge amount of words, but a lot of numbers, a lot of information, a lot that an employer can get out of a bullet like that. So really valuable to do that. We have a worksheet that's got this just like it in our resume basics pack. Also in the office on our website that you can do, really will help you write stronger bullets for sure. And then when it comes to an example, so this student was a communications intern from May 2021 to August 2021 at the Iowa Finance Authority, the IFA. If there's ever an abbreviation, and we love abbreviations on a college campus, you want to put those in parentheses after the full name. That way they know what it stands for. And that was in Des Moines, Iowa. So they assisted in maintaining IFA's social media initiatives. If you say social media, you want to make sure you tell them the platforms. So they list Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, producing weekly content on available services. So strong bullet there, prepared weekly news releases in cooperation with the communication staff. So they're working with other people, but they are making a product. And then they're consulting with the communication staff and coordinating with the 2021 Housing Iowa Conference, which is an event that they can look up and find pictures from, probably overseeing the use of the mobile app system, Agenda Pop. So again, using the name of a product that they've used before. So really strong bullets. Not taking up a huge amount of space. There's only 3 bullets, but 3 really powerful statements that give an employer a lot of context for this experience. Activities are very important too. A lot of times these get lost. Students don't think that things they weren't paid for have value, but employers really do like to see them. And again, we have some of our majors like human services, psychology, any kind of helping professions where volunteer and activities and things you do outside of class, those can be really, really important. So you want to make sure that you list those as well. Does show that you're a well-rounded person. Again, kind of gives a whole picture of you, shows character too, which is hard to do on a resume. If you were ever in a leadership position, this is a great place to show it too. So say you are in a fraternity or sorority and you're on homecoming committee, you want to list that and tell them that. So a lot of responsibility that goes with that. So you want to do that with dates, accomplishments. If you want awards, things like that, that's a good place to list these. So you just want to make sure that it's a significant one, that it contributes. You don't want to repeat yourself. If you've got several activities that are all very similar, maybe you were really active with St. Jude all through your time at Northwest. You only need to list that once. You don't need to list it multiple times. So how can you do it to have the most power come through? So a good example of activities here. So this person was in Lambda Pi Eta from August 2017 to present. They were the secretary from August 2020 to present. They recorded detailed, accurate minutes at each meeting, and they communicated weekly with all members about upcoming dates and events. So again, getting a couple bullet points in, giving some more context to what they did as the secretary of this organization, way more helpful for an employer than just saying member of Lambda Pi Eta from August 2017 to present. So again, just giving some more information, making it worth the space, helping the employer get more of a picture of what you've done in that capacity. One of the tools we have to help you through this process, because making resumes can be very overwhelming. So Wisedoc is a service that Career Services pays for, where you can log in with your Northwest credentials. There's no cost to you as a Northwest student or staff member. So you just log in with your Northwest email and password. They have pre-made templates for both resumes and cover letters that you can just plug your information in, and then it will do all the formatting, all the kind of hard work of making it look good, and then give you a file that you can download. So really encourage you to check out Wisedoc. Any questions about the platform, trouble with it, we're always happy to help you in the Career Services office as well. All right, so once you've made a really awesome resume, you want to make sure that you name it and save it so that you attach the right one. Because if you make a unique resume for 5 different jobs and you give the wrong one to the employer, all that work's gone. So naming is very important. So make sure that you save the document as a PDF. That's going to lock the format so it looks the same on an employer's laptop versus their iPad versus their phone versus whatever else. It's going to work a lot better than just a doc file or a Google Docs file. And then you want to make sure the name is very thoughtful too. So don't just call it resume 1, resume 2, be very specific as possible. So Sam Smith, assistant director resume, you're going to know exactly what that's for. Maybe you have the company name, maybe you have fall 2023 in there, whatever you need so that you know which one to attach. That's the thing that you need to do. So think about the names, be very intentional with it, because again, if you make a resume and then you give me the wrong one, I don't ever see the work that you did. So you want to make sure you're attaching the right one, saving it as a PDF so it looks as good as possible as you submit that. Some quick do's and don'ts for resumes. So you want to make sure that you use a very easy to read common font. So this is not the time for the script, very stylized fonts. The oldies and the goodies are the best one. Arial, Times New Roman, Calibre, things like that. Things that are easy to read, that's going to be your best bet. So definitely think about the fonts, especially if you are in a design major. Then you can be a little more creative with fonts. But if you're an accounting major, an education major, a more traditional major, fonts are going to be easy to read, simple. That's the best way to go. You want to make sure that you think about your font sizes. So 10 to 12 is about as small as you want to go. Any smaller than 10, it gets really hard to read. Bigger than 12, it's a little bit too big. You want to be careful with bold, underline, italics. Make sure that you're doing that on purpose, that it's a special place. It's not just kind of thrown in randomly throughout the document. You want to try and fit it all on one page if possible. Some students have so much experience that they can't possibly fit it on one page. In that case, use the front and the back, whole front and whole back if possible. But most students we can help fit into one page. So think about what really applies. Maybe don't include the stuff that doesn't. And then you want to watch out for margins too, to make sure that they're between 0.5 and 1 inch all the way around. You want to make sure it doesn't get cut off on the page if it gets printed out on paper, because it probably will if you get to the interview stage. So don't play too much with the margins, especially on the sides, because that can really mess up the formatting of the document. And then you want to be consistent in formatting. Dates, states, phone numbers, things like that. Use the same consistent format the entire way through the document. Some don'ts, tables and graphs, we typically say to stay away from. It seems like you're getting more space there, but you're really not. You're probably going to be fighting to get your content to fit in them, and they don't always transfer well over to a PDF or to another format. So just avoiding them is typically the best bet. You want to be careful with color and design. Again, some of our like graphic design majors, things like that, they can have a little more design in the resume, but most of our traditional majors, we just say conservative is the best way to go. So don't go too crazy with color. Don't go too nuts with things. They're going to be printing these in black and white more than likely. So something that prints well in black and white, that's not a really light gray, that's not going to show up on a white page, you want to be careful of. You don't want to use gigantic paragraphs of description if you can help. Again, short, concise bullets are the best way to go versus great big long paragraphs. Clip arts and photos, we would say not to use. Again, they're unnecessary. They're going to take up extra space. They're going to steal space from the content that you want to give them. You don't want to use abbreviations other than states and GPA, so you want to be careful of those. College campuses are full of acronyms. So again, if you're going to put that in there, make sure you tell them what it means first. And then just if you have questions, it's always better to ask somebody than to just assume that it's going to be fine. That's the best advice I can give you. So when it comes to cover letters are usually there to give them more information to the employer than you can just put on the resume. So it's a way for them, one, to see how strong of a writer you are. That's a lot of times why they ask. They want a writing sample, and a cover letter is a great way to do that. But it's also a chance for you to kind of give them the story behind an experience or something like that. Usually only want to keep it one page. Short and sweet is the best thing to do, not too long. Professional business style structure is what we would definitely recommend for that. Wisedoc, again, is nice. It's going to automatically put it in that format for you. But as much as you can, you do want to match the cover letter design to your resume so you have that consistent look throughout. So one of the things you need to do when it comes to cover letters and resumes, both, I would say, is research. So again, think specifically about what you can do for them. So that job description is a great thing for you to know really well exactly the qualifications they're asking for, what's required, what's preferred, what the ideal candidate looks like. All the information they give you on that job description is very valuable for the resume and especially for the cover letter. It's also important to research the industry. So go to their website, go to their social media accounts, look at other companies that are similar, maybe their competitor companies. The more you can kind of know about the industry, the better cover letter you'll be able to write, the better resume you'll be able to prepare. And then there are other places that you can look for too. So anything that you can do to talk about products, services, growth areas, things like that, all that sort of information you can get about them that maybe they're putting out in press releases, they're putting out on social media accounts, they're putting out, different places. All that information can be helpful as you try and put together a cover letter, try and put together a resume for them. So quick example of a cover letter, really pretty simple. Typically how we do this, 3 paragraphs is basically all that you need. So your first paragraph tells them how you found the job, why you're reaching out. Middle one takes 1 or 2 examples from your resume, tries to connect them a little bit, gives a little bit more of a story. You don't just want to regurgitate the same things that were on your resume. You want to give them some more information there. And then the last one is kind of just a thank you. You want to tell them, that thank them for their time, tell them you'll be in touch, how to contact you if they have further questions, things like that. That's really all it needs to be. The thing that we typically see students do with cover letters, one, they either don't know how to start at all, so they just don't, or they make it way more complicated. That's multiple pages. It's very, very, very long, completely unnecessary. 3 paragraphs, most of the time, going to cover you just fine. Maybe 1 or 2 more if you're going, kind of advanced level with it, but simpler is typically better when it comes to a cover letter. And that's kind of the whole presentation there. So the thing I would say is if you have questions, you have concerns, you need help through this process, and you probably will, that is absolutely fine. That's what we're here for at the Career Services Office. Come see us. We are located in Admin 130. You can email us career@nwmissouri.edu. And any other way we can help you, our website, nwmissouri.edu/career, has a lot of information on resumes and cover letters that we can help you with. So please let us know how we can help you as you go through this process. But definitely worth the time to make a unique resume or unique cover letter for every job. Have the best chance possible to get that job. So if we can help along the way, let us know. Otherwise, thank you for your time and have a good day.